I used to work at Checkers and Rallies, a prestigious restaurant nestled in the heart of the city. It wasn't the kind of place you'd expect to find horrors lurking, but I soon discovered that the most sinister of tales can be hidden beneath the glossiest of surfaces. The restaurant was known for its grandeur, its exquisite cuisine, and the opulent chandeliers that adorned the dining area. But it was also famous for something else, something darker and more enigmatic. It was a secret that the employees whispered about in hushed tones, a secret that seemed to haunt the very air within those lavishly decorated walls. I had just started working there as a waiter, eager to make a decent living and escape the drudgery of my mundane life. The first few days were nothing out of the ordinary. The customers were demanding, as expected in such a place, and the staff were a mix of friendly faces and aloof personalities. But then, on my third night, I noticed something odd. It was during the dinner rush when I first felt it, a heavy, suffocating atmosphere that seemed to wrap around me like a shroud. The bustling sounds of the restaurant faded into a distant hum, and I became acutely aware of something unsettling. It was as if an invisible force had settled over Checkers and Rallies, casting a pall of unease. I looked around, expecting to find some logical explanation, but there was none. The diners appeared as usual, chatting, laughing, and enjoying their meals. The waitstaff bustled about, trays in hand, wearing their practiced smiles. Yet, something was terribly wrong. As the night wore on, that eerie feeling intensified. The lights above seemed to flicker ominously, and I swore I saw shadows move where there should be none. It was as though the very walls of the restaurant held a secret, one that whispered through the clinking of glasses and the clatter of silverware. The other employees must have noticed it too. Their eyes darted around nervously, and their steps were hesitant, as if they were walking on thin ice. I approached Carlos, an older waiter who had been at Checkers and Rallies for years. "Carlos, do you ever feel like something's not right here?" I asked, trying to keep my voice low. He shot me a wary glance, then leaned in closer. "Kid, you're not the first one to notice it. There's something strange about this place. It's like it has a mind of its own."
I couldn't help but shiver at his words.
"What do you mean?" Carlos hesitated before answering. "I've seen things I can't explain. Shadows moving on their own, whispers in the air. It's like this place is haunted, but not by ghosts. It's something deeper, something darker." I wanted to dismiss his words as the ramblings of an old-timer, but the unease in his eyes was too real to ignore. That night, as I cleared tables and served dishes, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. It was as though unseen eyes followed my every move, and a cold sweat clung to my skin. I longed for the night to end, for the doors to close, and the patrons to leave. Finally, the hour grew late, and the last diners departed. The staff began their closing routines, and I joined them, eager to put the night behind me. But as we moved through the dimly lit restaurant, the atmosphere grew even more oppressive. That's when I heard it, a faint, chilling whisper. I couldn't make out the words, but it sent a shiver down my spine. I turned to Carlos, who was beside me, and saw that he had heard it too. His face had paled, and his eyes were wide with fear. "Did you hear that?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Carlos nodded, his voice trembling as he replied, "It's not the first time. It's like the restaurant has a voice of its own, and it's trying to tell us something." We continued our closing duties in silence, the oppressive presence hanging over us like a dark cloud. When we finally left the restaurant and stepped out into the cool night air, it was as though a weight had been lifted from our shoulders. But the feeling of impending doom still lingered in the back of my mind. Over the next few weeks, the strange occurrences at Checkers and Rallies became more frequent. Items would move on their own, glasses would shatter without explanation, and the whispers grew louder and more insistent. The staff couldn't ignore it any longer, and the once prestigious restaurant began to lose its allure. One evening, as I was clearing a table, a chilling gust of wind swept through the dining room, extinguishing the candles on each table. The room plunged into darkness, and I fumbled for my phone to use its flashlight. But before I could illuminate the area, I heard a voice that seemed to come from all directions, a voice that was neither human nor animal. "Leave, before it's too late." The words echoed through the darkness, and I froze in terror. I could hear the other staff members panicking, their voices a cacophony of fear and confusion. Carlos grabbed my arm, and we stumbled toward the exit, our footsteps echoing loudly in the empty restaurant. As we burst out into the night, gasping for breath, I knew I could never return to Checkers and Rallies. The feeling of impending doom had become too real, the malevolent presence too powerful to ignore. I had no doubt that something terrible awaited those who remained within its walls. In the days that followed, I couldn't shake the memories of my time at the restaurant. I learned that Checkers and Rallies had closed its doors for good, unable to shake the dark reputation that had enveloped it. The building stood empty, a silent testament to the horrors that had unfolded within. I tried to put the experience behind me, to convince myself that it had all been a collective hallucination. But deep down, I knew the truth. Checkers and Rallies had held a secret, one that defied explanation. It was a place where the line between the ordinary and the supernatural had blurred, where the very essence of the restaurant seemed to be imbued with a malevolent force. And as I walked away from that cursed establishment, I couldn't help but wonder if the darkness that had haunted Checkers and Rallies would ever truly be vanquished, or if it would continue to lurk. In the shadows, woes the next suspecting victim,